right, folks, welcome to our meetup. This is the, so technically speaking, this is a Midwest user group meetup, but we're not in the Midwest, just in case you're geographically confused by that sign up form that y'all had to do. We were originally leaders of the Midwest user group, and then we do user groups all over the place. So we're soon going to be reorganizing. There's going to be like an AEM architecture style user group that we're going to be leading. That's going to be kind of everywhere. It's going to be in person and local stuff. But for right now, thank you all for coming. So today we're going to be talking about edge delivery services, document authoring, or the artist formerly known as Dark Alley, and solving big kid CMS problems. And it's going to be, I'll give the first bit of it. Then I'll be turning over to Laurel. My job is mainly to set her up. She's got an amazing presentation. It's some really cool work, actually. But I've got some initial slides that I'm meant to show first. So there are a number of meetups all over the place, a lot of virtual meetups in the Adobe world. And so these are all ones that are coming up pretty soon. You don't have to remember all these right now. And by the way, I'm going to have a PDF of this PowerPoint and also some of the other diagrams and stuff that we've got in here that's going to be available to y'all basically immediately. So, but you can scan that to register for any of those. There's one on Splunk did a really neat edge delivery migration. They're going to be talking about that. We're doing next week, we're doing a meetup on some of the new AI capabilities that Adobe's rolling out. Sites Optimizer, some of the MCP stuff in AEM. It's going to be kind of fun. And then let's see, Content Supply Chain. That's also a brand new user group that's starting up. And then let's see, there's one more AI forum that's happening in San Jose. If any of you guys find yourselves on the West Coast. And let's see, Experience Maker Award finalists. This is something that I think we might be already over on, but. And then, there's a new user group. Actually, Greg, you're spearheading this, aren't you? Yep. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you want to say a couple words about the about this thing? Sure. Yeah, come on up, because then you can be mic. Or actually, hold on, look at us. Oh, we tested our mics. Yeah.
My name is Greg Dimmers. I'm a co-lead along with Shashi Malugu of the DC, Washington, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia chapter, and we're going to host this AI, agentic AI AEM workshop in DC. We're hoping to do one of these in the DC area if you were ever up there as well. And we're going to look specifically into agents, like developer agents, governance agents, experience agents in AEM, and how they work and what kind of workflows you can create, what kind of use cases we're going to see with those and everything like that. So that's happening February 26th. And we hope to see you online for this one. And then we're going to do a follow-up probably after Summit. So we can organize an in-person to highlight use cases and whatever people contribute during the webinar. So that kind of thing. Thank you.
And one thing I will say, just follow up from that. So I just came yesterday from an AI forum that Adobe put on in Atlanta. And I am kind of the most anti-AI hype individual. I'm kind of cautiously pessimistic almost all the time about it. But for the most, this is it's kind of graduated out of proof of concept. Let me show you a shiny thing land into something that is more like a tool. And at this point in time, it's kind of more like something where once you see how you can accelerate work, then you look at what you've been doing, and it's kind of like unloading a dump truck full of gravel with a spoon. It's kind of like, okay, why would I do it that way when I know what I want to do? So some really neat tools coming out, and for that I want to put in a plug for going to Adobe Summit, because a lot of this has been a confusing mass of tons and tons of capabilities, and you could look at this thing or you could do this other thing, and it's been tough to figure out how they're productized, how do they fit, what do I need before I start, can I use this now, or is this just some funny future thing that someday when we have flying cars, then I would also be able to use this AI agent or something like that. So I would highly recommend going to Summit if you can, and we'll be there. All right, good. So house rules for this. So this is a Adobe user group. We're meant to be user-focused, safe for all members. We're not going to be doing any self-promotion here. So, so if you catch me saying buy my thing, then you're supposed to tackle me immediately. We're also not supposed to contact people outside of the user group without their consent. And just to let you know, we are recording this. So we're intending to record this and share it. We're not live streaming this, except for I think there's like 1 or 2 people who joined the Teams meeting. So but that's internal. So there we go. And then please do sign up and join our user group, and we'll be sending out some stuff later on about this new AEM architecture user group once we get final blessing on the name. And if you share your experience, so this is something that this is from Adobe. If you just go and sign up this thing, then you get a $25 gift card. So here we go. So 2 prezos today. It's gonna be about 30 minutes. I'm gonna go first and mostly be, like I said, setting Laurel up. And then she's gonna give an amazing presentation on some of the tooling that she's been working on for Jump. And we'll probably do a break in the middle. So here we go. This is us. And let's go. Okay, so before I get going here, who here has touched Edge Delivery before? Who here has not touched Edge Delivery? Awesome, good, we talked, that's awesome. All right, great. So who here has touched document authoring? Great, who here has not touched document authoring? Okay, great, sweet. All right, good. All right, so I'm gonna do a little bit of kind of a history lesson, but I'm gonna keep it short. But I've also got a crazy spaghetti diagram that you shouldn't have to worry about reading on the screen because I've got a PDF for you. So the bits that I'm going to cover here are what is DA, what are the configurability bits, like what are the endpoints, what are the guts that you can actually change on this. I want to show you some diagrams, and since I know I have some architects in the room, you can totally poke holes in them or ask me difficult questions. Preferably ones that make me look awkward. And then what does this look like when you've got a mixed environment of things that might need to be in a traditional AEM setup and things that are good for Edge Delivery. And hopefully going to give you enough context so that you realize what Laurel's been up to. So here we go. So first off, AEM. So AEM used to be a product that you could identify. Used to have, a CRX quick start file, and it used to be like a thing. And if you were good at AEM, or if you're putting your site in AEM, then you could know exactly what you were doing. Now AEM is somebody once said that it was kind of more like a feeling right now. It's a product. It's a product brand more than it is a product. But it could refer to any of a vast array of Adobe tools for content management and content orchestration, which is the thing that Adobe is more focused on now, which is not just how do you manage content, like where do you stick things when you want to keep track of them, but how do you orchestrate all that content and make it do what you want it to do. But as a result of that, as a result of the fact that it has so many bits and so many things that you can configure, it has never been more composable. Composable in this case, meaning you can pick the bits that you want. So, so here we go. So in terms of Edge Delivery, since everybody here has pretty much touched Edge Delivery, I won't spend too much time on this, but Edge Delivery itself is not a CMS. It's not a content management system. It's a delivery tier and a whole application framework. And I'm going to show you some more on that. There's a lot of different ways to get things to use this Edge Delivery framework. There's a lot of ways to manage content and throw it into this thing. You can manage it in traditional AEM, and in some cases, it's desirable. Like for example, AEM Forms, it's got some bits which are running as a service, and some bits that are running inside of the AEM runtime. And so those are things that you would need to publish from AEM into Edge Delivery. There's other ways you can do it with SharePoint, or in our case, DA, which we're going to talk about a bunch more. And there's reasons for each, and it's good to understand what the positives and negatives of them are. But, and I will talk your ear off about those if you want me to. All right, here is the little diagram that you have to squint at. So, but I'm going to talk a little bit more, and hopefully actually not going to worry about this thing. All right, good. So this is just kind of a general diagram of what an example site that has to contain both edge delivery bits, traditional AEM bits, maybe legacy bits, maybe authentication bits, maybe your on-prem CRMs or ERPs or whatever you've got this thing to need to also talk to, and how would you net all of that together? Because so edge delivery services, which is this bit right here, which covers the whole delivery of the main site content, its main bread and butter is just site content. It's not a system to replace an ERP or something like that. It's not supposed to be somebody's CRM. It's not a database. It doesn't do any of those things. It's a delivery tier. So a lot of times you got to figure out some crafty ways to expose content to it. The nice thing is that it's so fast and so easy to deal with that it's actually a joy to make this whole architecture stick together. So one of the bits of this, which is super cool, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more, is the fact that Adobe has had a CDN for a few years now. So this CDN that they've had has been unconfigurable previously. You just kind of had to just take the configurations that it gave you, and then hopefully it's okay. And then if you know an engineer at Adobe, they can maybe fiddle some bits for you. Now this is totally configurable with pipelines, with rapid development and dev stage and prod environments. It's like super safe to configure it. It's really fun because what you can do is connect it to all kinds of other bits in the backend and expose the same domain to all these other bits in the backend. And there's a bunch of different ways to be able to do that. So in terms of, now, if you're going to author content, there's been a traditional AEM author, which right now in a modern edge delivery implementation like the one that we're talking about here, this is DA right here. So DA is here for your pages, your fragments, your structured content. It's there to orchestrate your translations, and it's there to manage user access or what people can do and can't do. It's really fast. It's got collaborative editing. It does a bunch of really neat things. And one thing that, actually a lot of people in the room already know this, but some people don't. So Jump was the first company globally to go live with a site on DA. It was a big deal. We found all the bugs, but Adobe was amazing to work with. There's some really quality engineers. We actually have one of the engineers in the room right here, who is actually helping us considerably on that, and we thank you very much for that. And then we went live, and it's been a real joy to work with. It's been a breath of fresh air. So a lot of fun. But it's only growing. But this is DA, and this is where this fits, and I will talk more about this shortly. So because the diagram is so little, if you guys go to that URL, blogdarbidigital.com/carry, it's got a bunch of PDFs on there, and including that diagram, including this PowerPoint, and then including Laurel's PowerPoint, but don't look at her PowerPoint until she gets a chance to do it. Okay, so DA. So I already talked about some of this here. So it formerly was Dark Alley, but the name changed. It's going to get a new name probably at Summit, but I can't say anything about that because I'm not allowed to preempt Summit. So here we go. Oh, one thing that I should point out though too. So like I said, I just came back from this AI Summit or AI Forum in Atlanta. And so there's a lot of new tech that's coming out. And one of them is the whole idea that one should, instead of having to be a super technical author on every last thing and spend tons of time on content issues, you should be able to have, in the future, a conversational interface with your CMS. That's one thing that is, in some cases, kind of like when we have flying cars, we'll have that. But a lot of this works right now. And Adobe's doing it first with DA because DA is so easy computationally to talk to. It's so easy to manipulate the content that's on there. It's easy to see the results. So as far as agents working with it, it just lends itself to that a lot more so than a traditional AEM setup, it's got a lot of moving parts. Traditional AEM has a lot of moving parts, and the deployment cycle is a lot longer on traditional AEM, whereas you can iterate super fast with something like DA. So it's an awesome foundation for this sort of thing. Main things that it does, and I'm mostly also telling you this because this is context that you'll need to see how advanced some of the awesome things that Laurel set up are. So DA does document tree management. It's got it's got a content backend that can also be used by Universal Editor. So if you have something that you need to be authoring in Universal Editor, then you can use DA. You use DA's content backend as well. Example of that being forms. It's got access control. It's got collaborative editing. We've edited with as many as 200 people at the same time in the same document, so it's very robust. It edits docs, sheets, and now it also authors structured data. So there's a lot of things that you could previously do only with like content fragments, experience fragments, and stuff like that in traditional AEM. You can be able to do that in DA now too. It's got live preview, and if you seriously twist my arm, I'll show you that it can also do in-context editing, which is really, really, really cool. It's got version history, it's got an assets picker, it's got a lot of bulk tooling, and it's got an app SDK. So those last two bullets, remember that for Laurel's bit. All right, so in terms of customizing a DA site, what are the customizations that you can make? So once again, I'm going to talk about this with spaghetti. So this is my attempt at showing how you can deploy code and configuration to an edge delivery site. So this is different than traditional AEM. And so for folks like you that are used to a traditional AEM setup, it's a different landscape altogether. Most of all the same bits that you're used to being able to configure, you can configure with this as well. You've got something called, so this has changed, and some of these changes have occurred over the last couple of weeks. So this is kind of bleeding edge, but so there's a thing called the configuration service, which basically configures edge delivery services. So things like if you've got all of your content being indexed and those indexes are driving a sitemap, all that configuration sits in this configuration service, which has an API that you can go and attack and hit it with. The code that runs the site, that actually tells you how the site is rendered, that's in a GitHub repo. You may have a separate code base that if you have traditional AEM things that you also need to do, let's say you've got a custom assets workflow or something like that, and you've got workers that you need to, processing profiles that you need to go and set up with AEM assets, then that's going to be configured in a separate AEM cloud service repo. And that's going to go through a regular cloud manager pipeline and out to your author cluster. Separately, also with that same repo, you're going to be able to control and configure your CDN. And one of the bits that I can, it's still a beta license, so there's some things I'm not supposed to say, and I don't even know where the line is anymore, so I'm just going to talk. So there's a thing that's called the CDN configurations in one file that you can go and do a whole bunch of things. You can configure backends, and you can configure request transformers. So when something comes in, you want to switch it and have it be something else. A lot of the things that you would traditionally do in Apache, you can do with this. It's also got this fun new thing called an edge worker that you can do, which is edge compute, which is basically wrapping around something called Fastly edge compute, which basically allows you to do all kinds of different compute tasks at the CDN. So let's just say you had something in the backend, something that you wanted to go and hit, like a service that you wanted to just take the results of that service depending on their location and then return a value or return some sort of interface control or something that would require some like live computation. You can do that all in here, and that's configured from this repo here. I was going to show some of that, but I didn't quite get it done beforehand. So anyway, that's what I got here. This PDF is also in that link that I sent you. Any questions on this so far? All right, great. Let me know if it's too much, too little, or anything like that. If there's things that just totally don't add up. Okay, good. And then I gave you a link for this as well, but there's also, so in DA, so in traditional AEM, obviously you need to customize what the user sees, but you also may need to customize what the author sees and does. And AEM had robust, or still has, robust capabilities on that. You can do all kinds of things in terms of what is an author allowed to do and not allowed to do. And you want to give them a drop down for this. You want to give them an experience for that. It was super customizable. DA also has a ton of customizability and in some ways is even more flexible. So there's a whole app API. I gave you a link for that. There's also a lab in Adobe Developers Live, but that link, I noticed yesterday that it broke. So I'll give you that link as soon as I can. Okay, good. So the Adobe CDN, I already talked about that a good bit, so I'm not going to go over this in more detail. But the fact that you can manage all your SSL and all that kind of stuff all out there in a safe way, I can't overstate how cool that is. Okay, I'm going to give you one last diagram. Okay, so this is an authentication diagram. So there is, when you're setting this up, so originally when Edge Delivery was first set up, it was very much bleeding edge. There's a lot of things that you couldn't quite do in terms of user access control. Like when it was first released, it wasn't even the ability to do authenticated publish. Like you would set it up and anybody could publish to the thing. So there's a lot of things that have been shored up to make this super enterprise ready. So so you first get configured like Adobe support when you say, okay, good, I want to make myself a new site. Here's my org. Adobe support's going to go and configure you as an admin in this config server so you can start making sites. You can start adding users and adding your indexes and code and stuff like that. And then for your access control for your repositories, it's going to be whatever your access control is going to be. Either you let people just go and authenticate right with your repository, or if you use some sort of SSO framework. SSO obviously works in front of IMS also. And now the other nice thing about these edge workers is you can go and throw Okta right in the mix or some other authentication provider right into the mix straight out of the CDN. So your users, let's say they need to go and they need to hit, my site name / protected content name. You would configure that in the CDN, and then that gets proxied back basically through your authentication provider, and then once it's cleared, ends up hitting Edge Delivery Services. So again, all that is configured in this CDN, and it's configured, like I said, with a dev stage and a prod environment. So even somebody who's never touched CDN configurations before, it's one of these things that even a person who is a long-term developer, if they've never touched one of these things, you can have the president of the company's email break if you mess up the CDN. So you don't want to touch that. So a lot of times, a lot of companies don't like to touch these configs, and they sit and they're stale for like 20 years because nobody wants the CEO's email to go down again. So, but as an example, so I'm going to call Noah, who has never touched a CDN configuration before. I gave him a ticket to touch a CDN configuration, and it's totally safe to go and do a relatively complicated workflow to do a bunch of string replacements and stuff like that on a CDN config. So this, I'm just trying to tell you, this is cool. Any questions about this? Great. Okay, so one thing I wanted to show you, see if I can just pull this up. So as an example of how this would work. So this site right here is an Edge Delivery site. So what this is doing is this site is going through the Adobe CDN. On the back end, so those thumbnails that you're seeing right there, those thumbnails are being served from AEM as a cloud service, from a separate AEM as a cloud service. This is actually just some dev environment that I've got that you don't know where this is because it's being fronted by the CDN. There's a servlet on this AEM as a cloud service instance, which is going and saying, here, I'm going to expose to you the data that I've been configured to expose. And then it's going to go and put, so all these descriptions and so forth, those are all just coming straight from AEM as a cloud service. There's a couple different ways that you can now do this. So in this case, and in the way that I implemented this block here, if you looked at the guts of this, you would see I'm talking to AEM as a cloud service, and it's exposing some URLs, and you may or may not want it to be that way. With an edge worker, you could go and hide all of that so that nobody would know what guts you have behind the scenes. So, but this is an example, and if you ever are on an Edge Delivery site and this is one of the nice things about developing on Edge Delivery, if you're ever going, well, what is all that? There's Sidekick plugin for edge delivery. This is an Adobe Sidekick plugin. And if you say view document source like that, you can see that, oh, look, this is a PDF display block. And this is the path that I configured in this block that says, oh, I'm going to content, damn, meetup, PDF. And it's displaying all the things that are in there. So just a quick example that, I mean, honestly, this example here, I threw together in an hour and a half. So I can't overstate how fast it is to do fun things with this gear. Great. That's all I got. Any questions? Yeah, fire. That's all right. Oh, here. Oh, look. Noah's got the traveling mic.
Making use of Microsoft Word for authoring.
Sure.
You're doing that implementation with EDS and DA. How much of the work actually happens in Microsoft? How much knowledge is needed to figure that template or give people the parameters that goes to how to actually author those documents?
That's a really good question. So in the answer is it depends. And but the longer answer is that it's remarkably easier than we thought. Aaron, I don't know if you want to talk at all to like the switch over from AEM to DA and whether or not that was a hard move. Would you mind? The multi-mic setup.
Sure. So I think it was easier than we thought. I think there's a little bit of orientation that has to happen, because I think particularly if you're coming from traditional AEM, you're very used to that interface. And all of a sudden you get dumped into this thing and you're like, what am I looking at? But I think with just a little bit of orientation, sort of understanding how because basically the way that I see it is like, instead of being in traditional AEM where you're dealing with all these different dialogues, you got to go into this component, this dialogue, you got to go into this field, make these changes, hit the thing here, blah, 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 get out of that, then go into a different component and do this. With GA, you're really seeing everything in one dialogue. You get access to the full page. And so everything's abstracted. You're not seeing, it's not WYSIWYG, right? And so it does take it's not a lot, but if there's a little bit of sort of just getting grounded with how this works, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is I can author pages quicker. It's pretty neat.
Does that answer it for you? Great. Cool. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
This is Jenny.
Hi.
Thank you. I have been in a meeting with you once last week.
Oh, wow. Okay, good.
So I am brand new to Edge. I pretty much don't know anything. The one question I have about the authoring environment is, after we finish the authoring process, is it a way to gate us whether or not I publish this page or not?
Yes.
Or is it a way to set up different users with different access levels so someone cannot publish?
Yes, there is. And I can show you here too. So there's, okay. So if you look at this, so there's a couple different places where you can set up that you're locking something down. So you've got DA, which is where all the pages themselves are authored. And in some cases, you may want to gate whether or not somebody can make a change to a page at all, or add a new page, or even see the content that's in a given location, right? So this has its own access control. So you could lock this down, and we've locked this down to like, so if I'm editing events and I'm in the Philippines and I should only be able to see the events that are in APAC, and don't show me the Europe ones because I don't want to mess that up. So only show me those. So you could just that is just on viewing and changing the content that's here. which is separate from whether or not it has been published or whether or not it has been previewed. So when I take a page and I'm first editing it in DA, or as you were talking about in Microsoft Word, in both of those cases, so Word would just sit in the same chunk as this. So if you're doing this whole thing, because this is totally supported in SharePoint also, where you can just go and take the same documents that you're editing in DA and you can edit them in SharePoint. At that point, you're using SharePoint's permissions for all of that. So it's just whatever your Microsoft permission structure is at that point. So you can edit a page, but that doesn't tell you whether or not, if I hit the preview button and I want to look at it as it would be a regular website, there's separate access control, which is in here, which is configured from this thing. There's separate access control for users where I would say, so this user, I want them to be able to only preview, but not actually push it live. At this point in time, there's not granular access control in terms of like, I only want people to publish things that are in the APAC events folder. There isn't that. I don't have that ability, but I do have the ability to turn on or off somebody as being able to preview a page or to publish a page. Does that answer your question? Yes. Yeah. I can demonstrate.
I know that maybe you only want a demo from an author's perspective. Maybe would be helpful. I want to talk about
No, this is super good. So let's do this. So here, I'm going to take a page. So let's just say.
Yeah, I mean, some people probably haven't even really seen DA as an authoring.
Yeah. This is DA. So so as an authoring environment, so here's a blog post that I wrote a little bit about the 15th birthday of AEM. So when you're authoring the blog post, so the blog post looks like this when it's out in the world. So to edit it, so each one of these bits that you see, so you have a hero here, you have, in this case, here's an embedded YouTube video and so forth. So each one of these is a piece of text. Then you've got, let's see, at the very bottom here's a set of cards that give you criteria where you say, give me more things that are like this thing. So each of these are blocks that would do something. So those are tags, exactly. So in this case, you're going to say, okay, well, here's my hero. Here's a block, and these in Edge Delivery, each thing that does something in Edge Delivery is called a block. That's code that has layout and styling. It has like, what does it do and what does it look like? It's all attached to each one of these blocks. So if you have something like here's a block. This is what was generating that YouTube embed. There's an embed block that says, good, when I get a YouTube video, here's how I'm supposed to display it. I want a cute little 4-pixel rounded border around it. I want it to be this wide, etc. So it's got configuration that's in that code base. And then it just says, give me my URL and I'll embed it for you. So that's how that gets configured here. Then previewing it. So in DA, preview means it gets sent out to. So this is a preview URL, and I can go into detail about what this means. But this is basically this is a place where somebody who's just trying to make sure that the content looks and acts like it should. This is not out on the public website. This URL is available to somebody without a VPN or something like that. So I could send this URL to an approver, or let's just say I was working with an agency partner, and or let's say I was doing an article about Jump, and I needed to send this past marketing comms before it was released. So I could give them a preview URL, and they could scroll through it, and then they could say, "Oh no, that's terrible. Oh, you can't use this with this background," and we can go and fix it up. But this shortens that feedback loop, so you can actually show somebody the real thing and not a screenshot or something like that. And then when it's done and ready to rock, then you would say publish. Publish goes, and that would throw it out on the production URL, and then it's out there.
So someone could have added or preview access, but without publish.
Correct. So, yep, that's right. Cool. Anything else? Fire.
Can the blocks be ACL restricted? So for authors, can you say this portion of a page can we edit it by certain authors?
That part of it's really difficult. Yeah, that part of it is difficult. So there are pieces of the AEM world that have never really made it into edge delivery, and that's one. I mean, correct me if I'm. Yeah, there's not really a way that I'm aware of. Sagar, do you know of any? Yeah, there's no. Yeah, that's. So that whole template policy piece of the AEM world has never really made it in, for better or for worse. I mean, in some cases this is a good thing to leave behind, but in other cases you need to work out other solutions for the problem that you're trying to solve, in terms of, because sometimes that's just like I can't trust my authors in this way. So in some cases you could build that into the code and just say, I'm only going to render this block if it's on this set of paths, and otherwise it's going to render nothing, or something like that. Like you could basically bake that into the code, but yeah, you have to just end up solving it in a different way.
Okay. Similarly, on that note, for end users, if you have authenticated content, so content section on a page that's authenticated, I'm assuming you would have to bake the authentication logic into the JS module that drives that block in order to render it for the user, right?
There's a couple different ways. You could do it on the JS block, or that's where edge workers would come in here. Because edge workers or edge functions, they sit in front of the CDN. So essentially you would personalize at the CDN. And based on who is coming into the CDN, you can look at their cookies and whatnot. You can turn off certain blocks or turn on certain blocks based on who is logged. That's a way. But you can also do it on the front end directly in the JavaScript, if that's suits your requirement.
Okay, so the edge workers, is that like a renaming of runtime action?
It's like that, but it is not that. It is just another serverless platform to essentially act as your middleware or backend. To the example in this diagram too, I thought the previous diagram that I showed, it acts as your backend or a middleware. Think of it that way, but it runs at the edge, at the CDN.
Quentin from Adobe did a great Adapt-To presentation on how to configure authentication for edge workers, and it's got some diagrams and even some sample code. I'll throw that in the notes. Cool. Anything else? Well, great. So if we want, we can take a little break while Laura gets set up. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have everybody. So thank you, Tad, for that wonderful intro. Hi, everybody. My name is Laurel Timko. I'm a senior software engineer at Jump. And today I want to talk about a shift we've been making in Adobe document authoring and edge delivery services, moving from developer-owned scripts to author-first self-service workflows for bulk content updates. Specifically, how we can make large-scale content safe, changes safe, auditable, and author-driven without handing people dangerous tools or relying on custom scripts. So I'll start by talking about why out-of-the-box search breaks down at scale. Then I'll talk a little bit about how DA enables custom tools and why apps were the right extension point for high-impact workflows. After that, I'll walk through the design of our new DOM-aware search and replace tool, and we'll end with a live demo. Tad has kind of already gone over this, but just to reiterate, DA or Edge Delivery Author or Adobe Document Authoring is the simple document model for how content is authored. EDS is the delivery layer. So before we talk about what we built, it's important to talk about what already exists, because the problem isn't that search is missing. Traditional AEM search is very powerful for finding content. Its repository index support metadata queries and works well for discovery. But when it comes to changing content, the workflow breaks down. Authors have to open pages one by one, open individual dialogues, and manually update properties. At scale, developers can step in with scripts, which introduces code reviews, deployment overhead, and risk. So there's search and replace live in completely different worlds. And this separation becomes painful when scale, speed, and safety matter. There's no native author-safe bulk replace workflow. Developers become bottlenecks for what are often considered simple or repetitive updates. And without preview or impact visibility, large changes are risky, even when they're technically correct. DA improves the situation by giving authors direct access to search and replace. DA site search is fast, accessible to authors, and works across multiple sites. It even includes a basic search and replace for simple text changes, and this is a huge improvement over the traditional AEM workflow. But the limitations show up quickly at scale. Replace is string-based, not DOM-aware. There's no understanding of blocks, rows, or attributes. Wherever a string is found, whether it's part of metadata or even a substring within a word, it would be content that would be replaced. There's also no bulk preview, validation, publish filtering, or reporting. So there's a gap between finding content and replacing it. This is where custom tools can come in, not to replace DA, but to extend it where workflows demand more control. DA gives us two primary extension points, library plugins and full-screen apps. Library plugins are page-level enhancements. They're fast, lightweight, and great inline helpers. Apps, on the other hand, are iframe-based, full-screen tools designed for multi-page and site-wide workflows. If an app or an action is considered high-risk, long-running, or affects many pages, it belongs in an app. And because search and replace spans many pages and carries real risk, we approached it as an app. So now let me zoom out and share a quick framework for building apps in DA. One of the things I love about DA apps is how little you need to get started. You just need an HTML file for your UI and a JavaScript file for your logic. You can also choose to include the DA app SDK, which can handle communication within DA and other apps. And to talk a little bit more about that, under the hood, DA runs in an iframe. Communication happens via the post message API, so that enables two-way messaging between the iframe and your DA window, so you can pass context, actions, and authentication. You can also have apps communicate with each other, allowing you to compose workflows instead of just monolithic applications. A few practical lessons I learned from building DA apps. You define your app in a sheet in your site config. That's how it becomes visible under site apps on your homepage. Apps are also scoped to your current site, which is an important safety boundary. You can see in my URL that's really small that I've got my org and my repo. That's what allows my apps to be visible there. And for local development, you can use the search parameters ref equals local to point DA to your local repo, which makes iteration much faster. With that foundation, let's talk about the app itself, Advanced Search and Replace. Advanced Search and Replace enables authors to safely search, analyze, preview, and apply structured content changes across large content repositories without custom scripts, backend access, or developer dependencies. The key idea here is structure and context, not raw text. Instead of treating pages as strings, pages are parsed into a DOM. Every match retains full context, which block it came from, which row, which attribute. This enables the block-level targeting, row-level searches, and element-level targeting by tag, class, property, or value. So we're searching the structure, not strings, and that gives us an additional level of safety. Once you have the structure, you can do things you couldn't do before. You can filter by publish status, we can detect empty or missing fields, and we can preview matches without opening pages. So this surfaces content gaps that were previously invisible. As you can see here, I have an example of my search results. And it's not just a list, it's an impact preview. From here, I can open pages directly, copy result sets, and see published status at a glance. If I need more information, I can click on each individual result to expand it and get a preview of my matched content. This gives authors confidence before they act. Because the app understands blocks and rows, replace operations are also structured. You can replace, prepend, or append text within a block. You can also replace entire cells, not just substrings. And importantly, operations aren't limited to the original matched row. We can add new rows, delete rows, merge block rows. This enables controlled transformations, not blind replacements. With that structure in place, we can do even more. We can export search results to CSV for reporting or validation, and verified result sets can flow directly into bulk publish workflows, eliminating page-by-page operations. Now, power without guardrails isn't self-service, it's risk. Before changes, pages can be versioned in bulk with one click. It was a conscious decision to not automatically version pages before each change to allow for sequenced operations. Undo and recovery operations are also supported in the workflow. Should you find that your actions had an unintended consequence, you can reset documents back to the state they were at the search. User-based access control ensures that only approved users can perform high-risk operations. And these guardrails are what make author-driven bulk changes viable. While this tool is powerful, it's not an end-all be-all. It's not meant for complex migrations. If you're doing a large sequence of actions on each page, you're better off using a script. Access to the app and access to edit pages are separate permissions. Both are still honored and both are needed to make full use of this app. And lastly, long-running operations favor safety over speed. If you were to leave a search window open, the results are stored in memory, and you might not be acting on the latest content. You'd need to do a fresh search to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. This workflow really shines in 3 common scenarios: large-scale taxonomy changes, one of the riskiest content operations, post-migration cleanup, and accessibility or quality remediations across entire repositories. In all cases, the goal is controlled author-driven change, not developer scripts. With all that in mind, let's see it in action. So I want to show what search looks like as it stands today. So I'm in my document repository, I'm in a sandbox, and I want to search. So I'm going to use a real example of marketing has come to us and told us that they no longer want to use the tag pharmaceutical. We want it to become health and life sciences. So we need to find all references of pharmaceutical across our entire site. So here I would search for pharmaceutical, and you'll see that it's really fast. It searched almost 100 pages in just a second, and it found all of this information. However, it doesn't tell me much. If I want to know what it was actually found on this page, I'd have to open it up and see my sample page. And as you can see here, it's got multiple instances of pharmaceutical across the page, so I can't do a blind replace here. Now, bringing in my app, I can do the same search. So I'm going to search for pharmaceutical, and I'm also going to narrow the scope to my sandbox and do the search. Now, this did the exact same search. It's still doing string-aware search for speed. And I can see that I got the same results. I can see I found my page again, and I can preview now what it found, and it found so many instances of the word pharmaceutical. Again, not exactly what I want to change, though. So here I can add in some structure. So I want to search for a metadata block. I want to find only pharmaceutical in the metadata. And I'll do my search again. It's going to take longer this time because it's applying the structure. Additionally, my results combine the content of the page itself with another API call that gets your publish status. So that's why it takes a little bit longer. It's having to deal with rate limiting, getting the publish status from a different API, and getting your pages at the same time. But you can see now I've got 2 results. I've eliminated 3 already. And now when I expand it, I can see that I have just my metadata block. It still found pharmaceutical in multiple rows, when really I only want it in this tags row. So I need to make my search even more granular. So now I'm going to apply the tags property. So again, I'll search. It'll take a couple minutes or a couple seconds. If you're doing this at a high level, it will take longer because it's searching all of your live content. That's why I narrowed it down to my sandbox for this demo. But now I've got my results back, and I can see when I expand, I just have my tags row. So now if I want to change it, I know that I'm changing the right thing. So before I change anything, I'm going to choose to create a page version. And you can see I've got my success message that versions were created, and I can prove that by opening up my page and looking at the version history. And you can see that I've now got a new, that's not today's date. Come on now. Probably because I haven't made any changes. But the tool itself will create a new version on your behalf. And so let me also show down here in my tags, this is where pharmaceutical is. So if I actually want to do this replace right now, I could do it as a simple text replace, just plug and chug, or I could do a more complex action to show more of the UI. I'll do a complex action. So I want to edit a row. I want to change just the value, not the name. I only know I want to affect the keyword because there might be multiple tags in my value. And I want to replace it. So in this case, I'm going to intentionally spell it wrong. So instead of health and life sciences, I'm doing hearth and life sciences. And I'm going to make that change. And you can see that my message now updated to successfully updated row. So if I go back to this page, I can see that it's already updated. So if anybody were working on this page at the same time, they would see that update happen too. Now, that wasn't what I wanted. I spelled it wrong, so I can undo that. And so it's been successfully undone. I'll verify on my page that we're back to pharmaceutical. And you notice the search results are gone. This is because when we undo it, we're putting it back to the way they were at the time of the search so that we're not holding on to stale information for a long time if you were to leave this window open. So I can do my search again, and I could do it correctly this time. So submit. Change that back to an L. Pop over to my page, and I can see it update. The last thing I want to show off in this UI before I take any questions is that with the Postman or Post Message API, you can nest apps. And so to recreate some functionality that was in traditional AEM, I created a page tree viewer so that if you don't know where your content is right off the bat, you can open up a tree structured view of it. And so I can drill in here and see where my sandbox is. And pass that information from one app to the parent app. Let me step back here for a second. So before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to thank my wonderful team for supporting this project and helping turn it into the polished tool that you saw today. If you're interested in how it works under the hood, the source code is on GitHub. Please feel free to explore it, take it, reach out if you have any questions. The QR code will take you directly there. And thank you all for your time. Are there any questions?
It's been no questions.
Oh, yeah.
You do a little bit more of a deep dive on the difference between where you draw the line between advanced search and using a script like.
Yeah, so we actually created this tool because we were doing a taxonomy change. We needed to be able to integrate into AEM as a cloud service to pull tags from that. And it was going to change how all of our tags were. And so I had originally designed this to do it in bulk. And I found out as I was going along and as I was doing multiple replaces, so I had to take a metadata row that was industry. I had to take a metadata row that was event date. I had to take a metadata row that was product, all of these individual rows and merge them. I was hitting all of those pages each time. So at that point, I found when I'm having to do like 6 operations per page per block, it was just easier to do it as a script and touch the page only once and then save it. So if you were to do small incremental changes, like you only needed to merge 1 row, then you could use the tool, because you don't need to do it across absolutely everything and have a large, expensive action happening.
At this, like 90% of the content of the website, you still probably would suggest a script over that then?
Probably. Especially at that big a scale, you probably want to verify your script and have somebody else check it to know before you do this that it's going to work.
I would say for the cases where you would want the script in the past, you might want to also explore the MCP server that we have now. Use your any favorite, LLM agent and do the changes that way. So there is a DA MCP server now, which is public as of a couple of weeks ago, that you can also use instead of writing a script by hand. It's an MCP server for your LLMs, so you can configure the DA MCP server uses your IMS authentication, and it allows you to find and change content directly in DA using like Cloud Code or Cursor or Codector.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Ask each question, so we'll be right. A question for you.
Yeah, Bart.
So, talk a lot today, obviously, about EDS and document authoring. Where does AEM as a client service in a traditional sense?
That is a really okay. That is a continual question. Continual question. So here's it's that particular.
Oh, I have it.
Okay. All right. So the it's got 2 sides. So on the one side, you've got AEM as a cloud service, which is a product which, from a licensing perspective, encompasses edge delivery services. So what Adobe's basically saying is use the delivery tier and the document tier that makes sense for you. We're going to bill you based on how many requests that you're doing, but aside from that, just use the one that makes sense, and then it's up to you to use what makes sense. There are still some use cases that even in this current world, it still makes sense to use traditional AEM, and they've been struggling with that word too. I was just on a call just 2 days ago too, where execs were like, "Are you guys put off by the term traditional AEM? Does that work out for you? Does that have a bad connotation? Does that mean?" Yeah, most of us agree that don't say classic, because classic infers that it's like old and sad, but no. But traditional meaning the way we've done it before. Like, for example, if you're doing, so AEM remains with a very powerful workflow engine. It does a lot of things. There are some workflows that just simply make sense in AEM because it's super powerful, especially when you've got old workflows that they still work. So do you want to refactor all those into Workfront? I mean, you could, but should you? Like, so in some cases, AEM still makes sense for that sort of thing. There are a lot. So AEM Assets, which is still obviously AEM Assets is the asset management solution, and it's still arguably the best asset manager in the world. So there's a lot of things that you, and especially if you're doing some of this really fancy pants new stuff that you can do in terms of these Firefly Foundry, Firefly services type things, where you say, okay, good, I've got 10,000 SKUs in my document repository. I've got all these backpacks or all these car parts or whatever I've got, and I need different backgrounds. I need you to do all these massive operations and then store them and then serve them. That's AEM. There's not even another tool that's a good competitor to AEM that I'm aware of that can do the things that AEM Assets can do. So So it's got a place in the world for a while. But for content like this, for the most part, like for example, if you look at the amount of gear that you had to do in order to get like a tab component to work in AEM, there's like all this structure and code and testing and deployment that you had to do that. There's not really a world for that anymore when you can do it all by itself, and you can throw like for example, that PDF rendering that literally was less than an hour that I had that up and running and styled and done. I wouldn't even have had it deployed on dev in that amount of time on traditional AEM. So with one deployment. So I know that's my take on it. I don't know if anybody else wants to give their
Sagar, you got a take on that?
I think I'll put it in two buckets. One is the authoring surface. The PA was one of the options that we talked about. As Tad mentioned, traditional AEM cloud service using Universal Editor is still an option. Word and Google Doc is still an option. I think still, DA would be the first place to go look at for an authoring option. But like Tad said, if legacy customers have complex workflows, MSM, internationalization, things like that they have used the traditional AEM page site editor for, that's a valid-ish use case to continue using that, although with a plan to move to DA. But for delivery, meaning the rendering of your pages, I would not look anywhere other than EDS going forward for new big investments that customers are making. To transform either from a non-Adobe platform to Adobe, or even from on-prem or 6.5. Going to cloud service would be a step that probably be redundant for delivery. It would make sense for them to jump to EDS today for delivery.
Thank you.
any other ones.
I just wanted to mention, like, related to the question that we were just talking about at the in the documentation, the live documentation, the guides, and where to author. There is at the very bottom of the page. There's actually sort of a quiz where you can actually evaluate like what your situation is, and you can play with the sliders. You know better than others, like what your situation, what your author's level of understanding of AEM is and all that. It'll give you a first good point, exactly, where you stand in the delivery and like, yay, or if you can use DA document author and to take care of 50% of your content author's need, then that's another value use case. You could do that and free up time. That's what I was trying to do with my architects and developers. Try to have their time be invested more in like logic, backend stuff, versus like having admins and content author working and document authoring and creating content, repeatable content, which is anywhere, in my case, 50 to 60% of our sites. More with document. So I think that's where I would start. I would go to guides and the DA live documentation and play around with it and have that discussion with my architects and my developer there.
Placeholder. I'll put the link for that in there.
Yeah.
So I think this is more around the DA side, but I'm curious, is there any kind of current plugin or add-on accessibility or SEO or any kind of things that would help those authors really kind of fill the requirements that each business might need? So, for example, accessibility, we need to make sure that we have labels on the image tags, or area labels for other things, buttons or whatnot, right? So like those very kind of, they're just as important. They're getting more and more important every day with accessibility and how, the guidelines are around that. So I'm just curious if there's anything in the works for that, if there's anything available for that right now.
That's a really curious idea, because right now, so Chris, you probably see more of the like.
No, yeah.
But there's also so many existing like Chrome extensions, things like that can, you can look at your preview page and will give you reports on that. Even Lighthouse can do that.
Right. Right, but getting that for like every single author globally and saying, "Hey guys, download this plugin," right? So,
but there's the other the opposite end of going at it. So you could do it from the authoring end and surface that in the author surface, or you could do it on the so because there you get like Sites Optimizer, which does it from the opposite end, where you're just basically crawling all the content and then running a set of whatever criteria against, saying how fast is it going? Does it have SEO problems? Does it have broken links? Does it have other performance problems? We click this, it doesn't do anything, all that sort of thing. And then you surface that in Sites Optimizer and says, would you like to fix this? Right now in Sites Optimizer, it doesn't work with DA yet. So you can't, so there's the idea on this Adobe Sites Optimizer product. I don't know if you've seen it at all yet, but it basically is a whole UI, this whole agentic backend, and then it surfaces what it sees, and then gives you it surfaces it, but then gives you options to be able to go and fix it. And in some cases, in some backends, like it works with traditional AEM stuff. It does work with some SharePoint stuff as well, but it doesn't work with DA yet for some reason. And but it's got some auto fix bits in there, so you could say, I've got this. Nothing has alt tags because I'm not grabbing them, but if I did this one thing, I could probably fix it. Do you want me to drop you a PR? And then have it just go and drop you a PR or something like that. Like that sort of a thing would be super nice. Or to have it just go and just suggest those authoring changes in DA. Like that would be an auto fix. Like that would be an amazing addition to that.
You could do that as a library plugin.
Yeah.
One of the example or workshops I think they did was like recommending tags based on the content on the page. You could have a library plugin that searches your page and finds any missing labels.
So in DA on the side, there's a library. You can basically go and throw the non full screen apps just into that. So if you have a window thing that you wanted to go in and throw up, or if you want to just go straight into the library, like the third search app.
Like Adobe.com has developed a Sidekick plugin that does some accessibility checks and things like that. So once it's previewed from the Sidekick, they can choose that and we'll give a report. But it's not part of the product. But it is open source.
I was thinking like, you guys are talking about AI and maybe there was something along the lines that could be used for that and saying, hey, as you're going along with this, like don't forget to add these things. And those things can be configured based on whatever business needs. Right?
It's a super fun use case, though. I'm glad we have Adobe people in the room when you brought it up.
Nothing's stopping you.
I was wondering, do you want to pull up Block Party? Because there is a DA plugin section there, or y'all can take a look at it too.
Yeah, sure.
If you go to aem.live/docs and search for aem.live/docs and search for Block Party, assuming people have submitted the.
What was it? I'm sorry.
aem.live/docs and can search for Block Party in the search bar there. On the bottom, scroll down.
Sounds like a good person.
If you go scroll it back, there's a search bar on the left.
I'm sorry, what?
Scroll. Oh, wait, stop.
Party. Yeah. So this is a good place to kind of look at what all community-driven submissions are there for various things, including DA plugins, which is what we were talking about here. So if you go up, there is a kind of a drop-down, which...
Now it's mine.
So people have already built a lot of cool stuff using, for DA or for EDS in general, that might solve your, your use cases. But
there is a way to submit new kind of submissions here as well, and it will go to actually my team for approval and publishing it on this page. The one other thing I was going to add with the accessibility question that you had is the core difference with how the HTML is generated in EDS from AEM, traditional AEM, is actually quite a lot. So Edge Delivery Services generates semantic markup out of the box, which you cannot change. So you actually already score higher on accessibility for many things because you have some of the semantic kind of rules already applied. But of course, there will be some additional things that you might have to do. So, but it will be a kind of an 80-20 thing more than what used to be in the past, where in traditional AEM, you can mess up the base HTML because you had access to the templates. You don't with traditional with HTML.
So, quick question. So, is that comparable to the ACS Commons toolkit, sort of?
This is community driven. So this is some of these are built by Adobe engineers, but a lot of them are like the one that Lauren just showed. It is also submitted by customers and partners. There is another, if you go to tools.aem.live, that is more analogous to ACS Commons for EDS, which allows you to do things for EDS, like kind of similar to ACS Commons.
Yeah.
There is one thing to remember. If you are developing a library plugin, it's a little tougher for things like ARIA labels, let's say, because those are actually decorated after render or the initial loading of the HTML document. So you would either have to get the version of the preview and somehow correlate that to your document.
Which is also pretty straightforward because you have all the access that you need to be able to do that. I guess the main thing to talk about with plugins and apps in DA is if you have customized Touch UI in the past for traditional AEM, you know how many different types of XMLs and JS and Java files you had to touch before an HTML or HTML before. It's all micro front ends in the DA app and plugin. All you need to know is JavaScript and HTML and CSS, which is exactly the same as Delivery Services. So it is a lot easier to get started. And I'm sure Laurel can talk about that too with the skill set that was needed. So it's a lot easier to build something that you want in DA plugins or apps than it ever was with traditional AEM. And same with Sidekick plugins, by the way. That's the same stack that you use as DA.
And I don't know. We never really showed it, but there's are you familiar with the Sidekick that comes up for Edge Delivery? There's a little bottom Sidekick that will show up on an Edge Delivery site, and you can customize that with other bits that you may want it to do.
Or the bottom kick.
Yeah, it's bottom kick.
I don't think we can see that or underfoot kick. Yeah, yeah. Well, we have time. I could show you the little quick edit thing. Yeah. Twist your arm. I know. Somebody, quick, just my arm. Make me do it.
It's like the foot pedals for piano.
All right, so this is an Edge Delivery site based on a new framework called AuthorKit, which has got a lot of bits that are, so there's been if you're familiar with old AEM, there's the AEM project archetype. And so in the Edge Delivery world, you've got boilerplate, which is ish analogous to the project archetype in AEM. So there is another kind of, I won't say competing, but is another sort of a boilerplate, which has got a lot of new features and learnings from the prior world of running Edge Delivery sites. So one of the bits of this little thing that you see at the bottom of the screen here, that's the Sidekick that we were talking about. It's not, like you said, it's not really a sidekick, it's a bottom kick. But it allows you to go and switch between. This is one of those plugins that lets you switch between the source and the preview and so forth. And I don't think I'm logged into this right now. All right, so as an example, so this is the page that is driving this page here. So you can edit this page here. I could say hello like this, and then go and preview it. And then you could go and see it there. Oh, I must have messed up my image there. So you have that there, but then you have, this is an in-context bit called quick edit. So I just went and clicked on that, and you can say, okay, good. Here we go. So I'm going to go and edit it. See me showing up there. So here I'm editing it in the browser in context, and my cursor is moving at the same time in DA. So I'm obviously logged into DA and doing this, and so I can say, so for folks that like the in-context ability on a universal editor, which that part is nice to be able to click on something and edit it. So this allows you to bring that same sort of functionality directly into DA. Suspect, I don't even know if I've shown you this yet. Did I show this to you? No. Okay, good. Maybe I was saving that for this meetup. All right, good. Anyway, that was what I was going to show you. Any other questions then?
This is different than Universal Editor.
That's different than Universal Editor. Exactly. That's a lot faster than Universal Editor. Sorry, what was that?
DA or separate from DA?
It's basically, so you're basically interacting with DA at that point. So you're using the Sidekick to go and interact directly with DA. Because DA's got bits where it's storing things in the backend, this whole content bus that it's storing things. Then it's got a whole DA collab, which is its ability to go and collaborate. So it's communicating with those directly.
Is the plugin called AEM Sidekick?
Yeah.
Sorry, the footkit there.
Yes, Sidekick, yeah. And then if you go to AEM.live and you say create my site, it'll walk you through everything. The Sidekick that it tells you to go and download, it's that one. And it works on any Chromium. Yeah, any Chromium browser will work. So yeah, Edge or Chrome or Chromium or Brave or whatever, that'll all work.
Yeah, you'll add in your configuration for Edge. Yeah. You gotta do an extra step select. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, it worked pretty much out of the box for me. Great. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up? Well, great. This was so much fun. So thank you guys all for coming. And we'll have to do this again sometime.